Hood versus suburbs. Today we brought together adults from all different backgrounds to discuss their obstacles, their successes, all from different backgrounds to discuss the hood versus suburbs. Stay tuned for this great, amazing show we got coming up, y'all. Inner city, hood, whatever you want to call it, suburbs. How do you think that that's affected your life growing up? Also, how society might view you guys. Also about things that you've just learned and what you use now in terms of then.
As compared to just like whether someone growing up in the
suburbs,
yeah.
or just your lifestyle compared to how's it helped mold you? Could say.
Or how do you think the differences might be?
Well, for me, I grew up in a middle class, evergreen area, so it's like a suburb of San Jose itself. So that was, for me, being African American was really different because there wasn't a lot of us over there. So I cannot relate to someone who says they grew up in a quote-unquote hood or a low impoverished area. So for me, it's kind of like, it makes you, I guess, respect where people come from, especially if they make it out of there, because it's a lot more tougher. Like, there's no murders in my side of town growing up. There was no police in my side of town growing up. So when people portray something, like, I know a lot of guys I grew up with that try to be a little hood, I'm like, that's not you. Because we didn't grow up around that stuff. So, we didn't grow up with the drug areas. There was no drug trafficking where we were at. It wasn't far from where we were at, you know what I mean? But that's not the side of the bridge we was on. So,
yeah.
That's what it's me.
I mean, in contrast to that, I'm like, we had nothing but black people. We was Mexican, Oakland, Deep East Oakland. For us, it was drugs on corners. It was weed being sold, but it was a normality. Like, people were accustomed to it. You got used to it. So sometimes I come off real brash or aggressive, but that's just the nature of the business. Like, that's how you were. And it's kind of, in light of the H&M thing, it is like a jungle. We're not cool as monkeys or anything, but it is like a jungle where you have to assert some type of dominance. It's like man versus man, and everyone's cool. It's ownership, and you learn from that. Like, from where I'm from, each street is your hood.
Right.
It's where you represent. So you take ownership in that, and you build a family with people that you normally wouldn't do. I knew people on my corner that, my neighbors and different people, and then people said, oh man, I used to stay on that block.
Right.
So it kind of gives you a history lesson, but it also causes problems too.
Right. I think, my parents, they got me, we were in Vallejo, not a great area, and they got me into a nicer area in Fairfield. But every summer, so I knew there was no drugs or anything in my neighborhood. I went to a school where there were drugs, and a very diverse school. And also every summer I would go to Oakland to my cousin's house, spend the summer out there, and I got to see different things. So I think I had a broad perspective. So do you think that some people might look at how you were raised or in a negative light because where they come from? So let's say somebody from like upper class, or that came from a family just from money, like just came from money.
Well, my perspective is I grew up in kind of like the Silver Creek area of San Jose. I grew up in Tracy prior to that, and then when we moved back to San Jose, we moved to like this community where there was like a golf course, and like it was just really nice. And so the people I went to high school with like always looked at me like the whitewashed African American girl, whatever, which I think is kind of interesting how people associate like good living to white people. Like I think that that's a whole other topic in itself, but I think that certain people who didn't come from that kind of lifestyle look at it in a certain way. But I also feel like the way that you grow up and your perspective on life has a lot to do with like what you're raised around. Like he was saying, things that are normalized, like drugs and whatever, in whatever neighborhood that you come from, it kind of like makes you look at things in a way where, like, for example, me, like drugs in a neighborhood and like Ahmad was saying murders is not normal, but to someone else it's kind of like, oh, that's everyday thing, like not shocking at all, So I don't know. I definitely think that it shapes. But you asked a question I can't remember. What
is it frowned upon? Babe? Like, do you think that it's? How would you? So you didn't come from that. Mm-hmm. How do you view that? Not necessarily frowned upon it, but is it a different? Of course, it causes a different effect on you. But how do you view that?
Yeah, I think so in connection to that, I feel like a lot of people that I have met in my life who are from a different type of upbringing than I am. I feel like there's this kind of, I don't want to say they are, yeah, like they have more of a guard up. Like I feel like people who come from an upbringing of kind of like opposite from the suburbs, like they have this wall up where they're very guarded, they're very they pay more attention to their surroundings because I think that they are used to an environment where they have to do that, you know? And so for me it's kind of different because I'm just like, it's just like trying to burst through a wall to get to know somebody because they're so like protective of like who they are and like what they know. They don't share as much information. And
You think it's because of what they
yeah, I think it's because of the things that they went through and had to experience. Like they learn not to maybe like care so much about people because they know that someone could be like killed the next day or something, or just the type of things they're exposed to. I feel like it just makes them a lot more protective of their like surroundings and their relationships with people, you know? So I don't think it's necessarily frowned upon, but I think you have to kind of try a little bit harder to get to know a person who has had a rougher upbringing.
The reason I like having conversations like this, because with me and Phil being cousins, I've seen both sides of that. So, you know, I'm like Paris, kid from East Oakland. Like I grew up on 94th and Birch, and I was in that area, you know, my whole life. So I get the normalization of, you know, waking up, going to school, and walking past other kids who aren't going to school but just hanging out on the block posted, you know, dealing. Or, you know, coming home from school and when it's bedtime and you laying in bed and you hear gunshots and you don't flinch. Like that, growing up in that was normal to me. So hearing people who aren't used to that hear that from me and they're like, you know, it's like they can't imagine that, but that's what the reality was, you know what I mean? So I try to see it from both sides. Like it definitely built me into who I am. Like I definitely get the people see the brashness, they see the toughness, but it's literally just it's our protective shell. Like you literally did not know what was going to happen to you if you went down the wrong street, if you went outside at the wrong time. But growing up in it, it doesn't stop you from continuing. You know what I mean? And the differences between both sides. It's not too different because I've seen Phil grow up in Fairfield. Like I wanted to go out there because I wanted to like get away from that part of life and have that escape. But knowing that Oakland is what built me, I cherish that. You know what I mean?
For me, it's culture shock.
Yeah.
I don't ever go to Oakland.
Yeah.
I don't say ever go to Oakland. I say have fun.
Yeah.
It's just not for me.
That's right.
And it's nothing because I frown upon Oakland. I think I'm better than Oakland. No, it's just not for me. I can't adapt to the culture because I wasn't raised in the culture. It's not normal for me to do that. Like I said, I'm from the middle class, so like literally like I can't go 30 miles up north because that's Oakland. I can't even go 15 minutes up south because that's like the Silver Creek Country Club. We don't belong there. Right? We just don't fit in because if you live there and you're African American, you're an athlete. You're an athlete's daughter, an athlete's son, something of that nature. She did live there in that area, but like I said, for me it was different. I dated someone who did live there, but it was like, y'all don't belong here. So you don't really feel welcome in a sense, and where I went either way. So that's the tough part about being a middle class thing. And I grew up in some parts of San Jose that were just not very good at all. But my mom kept us in church, kept us in sports, so we kind of didn't engage into those activities. So, you know, some things are just really
I was gonna
say, and the funny part, I was gonna ask Paris this, with us being from Oakland, I don't live there now.
Yeah.
I feel the same way as I have no reason to go to Oakland.
I don't go back. I try not to go back. My mom asked
avoid.
me not to go back, but I was gonna say one other thing. When people say you're from Oakland, I get two different responses. At work, I'm in a media job. I'm dressed up. Man, you're from Oakland? I would never expect it. Or if I'm playing basketball, you're from Oakland? Oh, I see why. I get it.
Yeah.
It's like a certain connotation to it. Like what?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I was gonna ask, like, do you think that's just from people lacking diversity? And do you think that since we're older now, do you think that you're going to? I mean, of course, your children should be aware of all facets, but Do you think that you're gonna take them to the hood? Do you think that you're gonna just,
See,
if they don't have to
that's
go,
great,
are you gonna
because
take them? Or like, how is that gonna work?
you got shipped off, right? I mean, not shipped off. They sent you Fairfield, different
Right,
places.
my dad grew up in Vallejo, my mom grew up in Oakland, and then they were married in Vallejo, and we weren't in a nice neighborhood, so they got me out of there before I could even see what was happening around me.
I didn't finish high school in Oakland because my mom didn't want me to.
Right.
Every summer she sent me to Sacramento, get out the way. So,
Right.
and I look back like, will I go back there? I would tell people about it. I would tell, if I have kids, I would tell them about it. But you know, there's certain aspects that people don't need to be a part of and stuff. But like you said, it does build you though. It built me to who I am today. I deal with situations based on how that is.
Like,
So
I would not have wanted to be raised anywhere else but Oakland, but having been through all of that, I appreciate it, but the ultimate goal was to get out and to possibly stay out.
I think it's important that we as the next up as parents or whatever spread awareness to all different types of living, because I coach at a Christian school. I tell girls on purpose some stories that I've had to deal with as a black man, and you should see their faces. They're shocked because they can't believe it. They've never even thought about that, like, because they're not even aware of that. And they haven't. So when I tell them things, it's like, oh wow, like, oh really? Like that really happened? Yeah, that really happens. So it's like broadening their horizons. I think we all need to do that as a whole to the next generation coming up.
Definitely, and I think it's also important to just like constantly inspire people to be on a path for success, because I think at the end of the day, it's hard to raise a family in an environment where a lot of negative things are going on. So I think that when you kind of like build yourself financially first before starting that, before bringing kids into the world, you are just on a better path to raise them in an environment that is going to be best for them. You know what I mean? So I think just constantly reminding the younger generation, like, be in school if you want to get a degree, and I know that school's not for everybody, but have a focus, have a plan to have a career, set yourself up financially so that when you are ready to have kids or when you want to have kids, you can bring them up in an environment that is going to be positive for them.
And if you are in that type of area, pray to God, because I'm assuming Paris has it too. Pray to God you have parents who can see your future before you can and push you to not get caught up in that life.
And we got to think about situations as I wrap this up, because you guys are all saying great things, but we got to understand that everybody doesn't have this support system. Everybody doesn't even have parents to lead them in the right direction or guidance. That nobody has guidance. So, I would say just wherever you're from, don't let it dictate where you're going.
Absolutely.
That's
right.
the biggest thing.
Preach that.
Yeah, for sure. Because it doesn't define who you're trying to be.
Right.
We got to remember that. Hey, thank you guys. Truly appreciate this. It was great.